All right, so we're back with another subscriber rating and advice video. It's been a while, so I figured it's a good time to do another one. So this is our first guy. Clearly very attractive. I'm not trying to glaze or anything. Let's be real here. In reality, this guy is very close to his true potential. So we don't really need to do a whole lot. And like everyone, I'm going to take them through my 3 phases to achieving physical attraction. So phase 1 being optimal facial composition. Phase 2 being identification of your own specific facial flaws based on your own unique facial structure. And then phase 3, which is just simply fixing those specific flaws. Based on the feedback from last video, people wanted to see the changes straight after the identification. So that's what we'll do in this video. So yeah, let's start with phase 1, which is the facial composition. And yeah, you have great facial composition, no bloating, no facial fat, fairly tight hyoid skin. However, the masseter development and the neck development is slightly subpar. So you have quite a narrow jaw here. Just follow along in this video, but also download my free guide. It's a link in the description. Completely free. Follow along and you'll have the exercises in there and the information in there to maximize these regions. But let's not start with that. We'll make a change in this region later on. We're going to look at the forehead first because the forehead's slightly on the larger side. If we start where the perceived start is here, let's just calculate your facial thirds. Okay, so as you can see, the forehead is about 35.7% of the total facial length. Ideally, we want to see the upper third around 32 to 34%. So we have slightly too much upper third here. If we look at some measurements of the forehead, just to further confirm this, the forehead should realistically be about 90% of the length of the nose from the nasion on down. In your case, it's 8% larger. So what we're going to do with our first change here is we're going to reduce the perceived size of the forehead. And we do this by having some hair down onto the forehead. And yeah, you can do it a lot better than this, but this is just a concept. And it shows you that you just need to put a little bit of hair down on the forehead and it's going to reduce the perceived starting point of the hairline and reduce the overall size of the forehead. And it's going to help to balance your facial harmony. When you have a slightly larger forehead, it's going to give you more of a juvenile appearance. And if we link this in with dimorphism, this juvenile appearance is going to signal low sexual maturity, which is generally quite unattractive. You can definitely do it better than this, but as an idea, having hair coming down onto the forehead slightly just to reduce this size is definitely what you want to do. And looking at your side profile as well, some acne. For fixing the acne, for removing the acne, I really recommend going for the carnivore diet. You're going to have single ingredient foods, low inflammation, avoiding chemicals and long ingredient names that you can't really even pronounce. Do it for at least 3 to 4 months. You can introduce some other foods if you want to, fruits, honey, stuff like that. But I would highly recommend just sticking to a very, very simple diet. That will help to clear up your skin really well. So if we look at that change, it's very, very subtle. And it's also linked with the slight inflammation of the nose. As you can see, the nose is a little bit inflamed, a little bit darker red. So we're going to increase the smoothness of the skin, reduce the inflammation. This will happen with the diet anyway. With the smoothness of the skin, you can either use a microneedling device with hyaluronic acid or a very weak retinoid and then build up the strength over time, maybe 4 to 6 months. But yeah, it's really, really easy. So the next thing that comes to mind for me when looking at your face is that you have a slightly longer face. So let's have a little look at your mid-face ratio. So as you can see, you have a slightly non-compact mid-face. When we're looking at the upper lip, we want to see typically anywhere from 69 to 73% of the lower lip. So in your case, the upper lip is slightly thin, but the philtrum in general doesn't look too long. However, a little bit more volume in the upper lip with either volufiline or an upper lip filler very subtly. It's going to really help to increase your facial harmony and make your face look more compact. So if we have a look at this, yeah, it's very, very subtle. No one would even notice that you've done it. That's kind of the beauty of it, but it's going to just really, really help overall, just reduce this perceived length of the face. And in general, I think the hair is a good idea, like what you're doing with it. It's going to increase some width to your head, which is really, really good, especially with the slightly narrower jaw and the longer perceived face. The next change is to do with the jaw and the neck. If we have a look, so very, very subtle, but if you follow along with my guide, you can really, really easily increase the width of your jaw. So let's have a little look at the jaw. So your jaw width is about 82% of your cheekbone width. And ideally, the golden zone for this is 85 to 90%. You need to develop the masseter muscle slightly. And if we look at the angle of the jaw from a front view, a little bit narrow, this 92% currently, we want to see anywhere from 100 to 110 degrees. So adding width to the jaw is going to help to increase that number. Let me just show you exactly what that looks like. Very, very subtle, but it definitely increases your appeal significantly. And now let's look at the neck. So you're an interesting case because in most cases, we want to typically see anywhere from 95 to 99% of the neck to the jaw. However, I tested this with you and it's really interesting because a much larger neck doesn't really suit you very well. These zones and these proportions, they're not written in stone. It's not like sort of a rule. It's just a general direction to know exactly where to go towards, right? Based on where you currently are. The neck does look slightly too thin for the head and now the new additional jaw size, but we're going to only increase it very subtly. And this is what it looks like. So it's very, very subtle, but it's going to increase your dimorphism. It's going to help balance things a little bit better. The final change comes to your eyebrows. So in general, the eyebrows are really, really good. So good density, good color, and in comparison to the hair color, really, really good. However, there are two minor issues. Firstly, we have a really, really steep positive angle here. So if we look at this angle here, typically you want to see around a 5% angle. And yeah, 17.9 is slightly too steep. The second thing to consider is the lack of tidiness around the eyebrows. So we'll reduce these sort of smaller hairs around the eyebrows, but also we're going to keep the lower lateral parts of the eyebrows. Otherwise, it's going to increase the perceived positive tilt of the eyebrows. So we're going to slightly reduce the tops as well. So the aim is to move away from this sort of untidy look and also reduce the perceived positive tilt of these eyebrows. Very, very subtle, but big increase. So if we compare the start to the finish, it's subtle, but it is a significant increase in physical attraction for sure. So originally you're about a 7.75. So this is an insane rating. I don't think I've rated anyone this high before. So you're very, very close to your true potential. You're clearly starting from a very attractive baseline. This is top percentage appeal. Let's move on to our next guy. And before we do, if you want to be part of these videos, just send me an email to join the queue. Just make sure you're comfortable with being publicly analyzed, because once the video is up, it's up. So let's move on to the next guy. All right, so here's our second guy. Another fairly attractive guy. Quite a few things that we can do to improve. Yeah, this is just a general scan for these subscribers. I might miss a few things. If I have missed anything that you think is significant, definitely let me know down below. Let's just get into this. If we start with phase one, quite a narrow jaw, thin neck. So definitely check out the guide and go through it. The other thing that really comes to my attention is the eyebrows. They're slightly short here and they're slightly too thick. So if we look at the thickness, should be about 0 to 25% larger than the radius of the iris. So we've got 30 and then we got 59. Yeah, so that's quite a big difference. Let's also look at the jaw width here. So yeah, 82%. So quite a narrow jaw. And let's have a look at the neck. Quite a thin neck as well. So the first change will address all of these issues at once. Reducing the vertical height of the eyebrows. You can do this by shaving, super simple. Thicken the neck, widen the jaw. So what I noticed next is the slightly large forehead. So let's look at the facial thirds. In general, good lower third, pretty good middle third, and a slightly too large upper third, 34.8%. So we talked before how we want to see this around 32 to 34%. So you can probably predict what we're going to do. We're going to reduce the length by bringing down some hair onto the forehead. And I want you to move away from the shaved hair as well. I'm typically quite against the shaved hair. Yeah, let's make that change now. I think this hair suits you well. Scissor cut on the side, forehead coming down. As you can see, the new starting point for the hairline is much lower than it is up here. In general, these changes are going to be really good for you because I did notice a slightly wider nose width, but this is phenotypical. So if you were to make any changes to this, it would look really strange. So what you want to do is just increase the width of the jaw as you've done and the neck as you've done. This will reduce the perceived width of this alar width here, which is really good. Okay, so the next thing I notice is the skin. And this is not a major flaw. It's just a very minor flaw that subtly brings down your appeal. So it's either active acne or acne scarring. Either way, similar to the advice of the last guy, hop on the carnivore diet, no processed food. And if it's acne scarring, you can do microneedling with hyaluronic acid or a weak retinoid and then build up the strength. And this is a really effective way to get rid of acne scarring, hyperpigmentation, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, let's have a look. Subtle, but still a really, really good push in the right direction here. So let's look at the facial hair. So this comes to my attention a little bit. So I think you do look good with a bit of facial hair. However, it's kind of looking a little bit like a chin strap. I know you've either gone for a goatee here, which is slightly less ideal than general stubble. We want to increase the density of these terminal hairs here. So we want to transition the lighter, thinner vellus hairs into thicker terminal hairs. You can do this with minoxidil and derma rolling. It's a really effective method. There are so many examples of how people have done this. And yeah, I think you look good without facial hair, but I think facial hair just sort of pushes you in the right direction. It increases the contrast between the chin, the jaw, and the neck, which is really, really important. Gives that clear border here, increasing the facial definition significantly. And the last thing that I notice is the eyes look slightly dull, maybe slightly bloodshot. They could be a little bit whiter. Subtle change. And this is really easy. You can either do eye drops, you can just reduce the eye strain, reduce blue light as much as you can, improve your sleep, waking up at the same time, going to sleep at the same time for at least a month. You want to increase your vitamin A and vitamin C intake. Information on this is in the guide as well. So let's look at the before and the after here. Subtle changes compounding into a major shift in appearance and definitely in the right direction. So a huge increase in appeal here. You're starting from an attractive baseline. I put you at around a 6.25, which is attractive. So if you want to be in the next one, guys, just email me, make sure you're comfortable being in it. And if you like the video, let me know by liking it. Comment your thoughts. Maybe I missed something. Maybe you don't agree with my rating or some of the advice I gave. Let me know and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And make sure to download the free guide in the description to help you increase your facial composition.